Okay, let's do a video, shall we? So, let's see. Oh, this is making noise. There. A couple days ago, my wife shared with me something she found on CNBC. It's on my phone, so I can't put it up on the screen, but I don't really need to because it's just a discussion point. The title of the article is dated August 8th, if you want to go look it up yourself, is why insurers worry the world could soon become uninsurable. Okay, so these are people who write insurance policies and they're worried that the world could become uninsurable. That means they're out of business. Okay, so let me veer out of this and get into this. No, not that one. This one. This is an actual picture. This is the caption says, an aerial view of the devastation in Pacific Palisades, Alphabet Streets neighborhood. Whoops, I didn't get my microphone. There's my microphone. Sorry about that, folks. Ill prepared. An aerial view of the devastation in Pacific Palisades neighborhood. Make sure it's using the right one. Yes, it is. Where Max Rodman grew up, because I think he's the person reporting on this article. But in any case, yeah. So this is the scene at Pacific Palisades. Pacific Palisades is an elite neighborhood, North Hollywood, North LA, and it all burned. It all burned. Pretty much all of it burned. This is a typical picture. There might be a couple of houses in here that didn't burn, or some businesses or something, but for the most part, yeah, it was bad, really bad. And so, what happened in LA? Let's see. It was 100% attributable to global heating. So that's why we can have this discussion here on this channel. The topic, insurance, is also under attack. These people are under attack. Their business model is basically evaporating right out from under them. And it's because of events like this one. If the fire at Pacific Palisades was not attributable to global heating, they probably wouldn't be panicking. But because nearly all the fires in California are attributable to global heating, this is what we call the land of unintended consequences. Nobody thought this would happen. Oh, cities burn all the time. Nobody thought this would happen. Oh, but parts of Southern California burn every day. No one thought this would happen. Oh, but people have insurance for just these things. Nobody thought this would happen. How many times do I have to say this? This particular event took place when there was a massive, what they were calling at the time, because they don't know what else to call things, because meteorologists are just numbnuts. They were calling it a Santa Ana wind. Oh, they get Santa Ana winds. Nobody was expecting anything like this. It was a Santa Ana wind that had winds up to and over 100 miles an hour. That's a hurricane. That's well into hurricane territory. That's probably like a Category 2 hurricane. Or a derecho, which we've been seeing more of these days. So this was a massive wind. It came blasting down out of the east, and somehow on the edge of the urban area of LA, it caught a spark, caught a fire. Who knows? Winds like that, 100 miles an hour, can blow over things like power poles that then spark and catch things on fire. And now you have dry climate, dry environment, no rain, and 100 mile an hour wind and a spark. And what's that supposed to do? That's supposed to burn. And sure, they get Santa Ana winds. They don't get them 100 miles an hour. Oh, well, they can't. Yeah, maybe once in a while. But listen, this has never happened before. And you can project all your normalcy bias on this that you want to. And it just doesn't work. Every one of these homes is like a $4 or $5 million home. Every lot has, is owned by attorneys and highly sought after physicians and surgeons and Hollywood moguls and actors and actresses and producers and This is the creme de la creme. And, you think they don't have people doing yard maintenance? You think they don't cut down their dead trees? You think they aren't maintaining their property? Give me a break, all right? These are the rich people. Their houses look great. Everything is green. Their lawns are watered. They have a backyard that's a pool. And it all burned. It all burned anyway. Because when you have 100-mile-an-hour winds, you can't fight that fire. Oh, yes, you can. No, you can't. You can't even fight a fire with 60-mile-an-hour winds, or probably even 40. You can't fight it. Well, you put enough trucks out. No, you can't fight it. Well, the problem was they didn't have any water. Yeah, they ran out of water trying to fight a fire that cannot be fought. Well, but the reservoir had nothing to do with it. But people make all kinds of mistakes about what happened here. Why can you not fight a fire with a fire hose in a 60-mile-an-hour wind? Because the wind grabs the stream of water and blows it into mist, and it doesn't go anywhere. And if you want to go back and look up some of these videos about these events, you'll see it. You'll see the water comes out at the end of the hose, and it gets 20 feet past the end of the hose, and it just gets blown into mist. And there they are spraying water, because that's their job. They're firefighters, and they're going to spray the water. And they're just robots. They're there to fight the fire. They have a fire hose, and a fire truck, and and they're going to fight the fire, and it's 100-mile-an-hour winds, and they're spraying the water, and it's just blowing away out into the landscape because it's 100-mile-an-hour winds. Then they ran out of water because they couldn't put the fires out when the fires are being driven by 100-mile-an-hour winds. And these fire trucks, they show up to put out a house fire. Well, meanwhile, as you can see in this picture, all the houses were on fire. And you could be working on the east side of a street, putting a fire out in a house. Meanwhile, both houses on either side are suddenly on fire. And then the house right behind you on the west side of the same street is now on fire because the embers blew across the street. And I remember seeing pictures of firefighters out in the middle of the road with their fire truck, and so much smoke you couldn't even see, except you could see the embers being blown across the street between their legs and bouncing across the asphalt and the sidewalk into the next house across the street. And here you are, you can't even put the fire out that you're fighting. And meanwhile, the house right behind you just caught on fire. 100-mile-an-hour winds. Wind-blown embers. Advanced spotting, fire spotting, the 1/10 of a mile away. They couldn't fight these fires. They could not fight these fires because of global heating. Yes, there was a problem with the jet stream, and it brought down a big slug of super cold air. And the problems with the jet stream are 100% attributable to global heating. And it brought down frigid air from Canada and the Arctic, and it dumped it into the basin, the Great Basin, which is east of California. Dumped it into the basin, and the cold air settles under pressure. And then, when the cold air settles into the basin, it tries to find an outlet, like water would if you pour it into a bowl. It tries to find an outlet, and then it found an outlet, and that outlet is the same slot that generates the Santa Ana winds. So it's the same geographic features, but it's a very different context. And so this heavy cold air finds this slot and blows through this slot, and it hit Los Angeles in the normal way. And they called it, this is a Santa Ana wind. Everyone thinking, 35, 40 miles an hour, it's going to be windy, it's going to blow your hat off. And meanwhile, it was 100-mile-an-hour winds. And they were done. That's it. They were done. They were finished. And do you not think, even though it's not discussed, even though no one will discuss it, do you not think that people don't notice this? I noticed it. Now, of course, I'm a system scientist. I'm a climate scientist. I pay attention to the Earth dynamic system. I notice a lot of things. I talked about this a lot. I even had videos at the time that this event took place, and I talked about why this was so significant. Well, now, months later, the significance of this is all the more obvious. And the significance is that this event broke the insurance industry model. There had been enough fires and enough significant losses like, for example, in Malibu, where the insurance industry in California was already on the rocks. They tried to leave California. There were three major insurance companies. What were they? Farmers, State Farm. I felt like there was a third. They just basically abandoned the state outright, and or significant parts of it. And then California worked with them and said, look, you can't abandon a whole state like California. We're the fourth largest economy in the world. We got a lot of money here. We got a lot of important real estate. You need to insure it. And of course, what the state was thinking about, what the counties were thinking about, talking to the state about this, is that real estate is a big part of the California economy. When you have $1 million properties, the property taxes pay for a lot of services in LA County and Orange County and all the places, in San Diego and all those places, okay? The property taxes on $1 million lots pay for a lot of services. And so, of course, the salaries of a lot of important or wannabe important bureaucrats. So, of course, they went to the state of California. They said, hey, you can't let the insurance industry leave California just because they suffered massive losses and are completely underwater. And so the state brought them back in and said, look, we're going to take care of this. And I don't know what deal they worked out, but my guess is that the insurance industries, the majors, were guaranteed profits. They were basically indemnified against losses. So they're still writing policies, and all of this is now bubbling up. The pressure on the insurance industry can be temporarily, ameliorated, if that's the right word, can be temporarily offset, but it cannot go away. Global heating is real. Global heating is impacting, well, essentially everything. And the insurance companies whose job it is to, my wife is here, I guess she's going to call me. I don't think I want to talk to her though. Okay, well, we'll see if she gets it. So that they're not going to have a business model if things continue, which things must continue. They cannot not continue this way. Global heating only gets worse. It only affects more places. It only impacts more and more people, and plus more and more businesses, more and more governments, more and more industries. And the insurance industry is the first, because they have to pay for anything bad that happens. And so with global heating, bad things are happening. Have you been looking at the headlines, right? Massive floods on almost any continent you can mention. Of course, they don't all get covered by the media, because the media doesn't care about everything. But the floods in the UK get covered. The floods in most of Europe get covered. The floods in the U.S. East Coast get covered. Floods even in China get covered if you know where to look. And they're having a hell of a time. And all of these areas have insurance. They have. Hope she's not calling me. Almost got to feel like I got to turn my phone off. They have businesses. They have industries and everything else. And this is going to be a huge, absolute, massive problem for these. There we go. For these countries, entire countries. So now let me refer to this article that was shared with me. Here's the key points under, again, I'll read the title again. Why insurers worry the world could soon become uninsurable. What do you need insurance for? You're a business. You insure your product line, your showroom. You're an auto dealer. You insure the cars that are on the lot. You're a mortgage lender. You insure mortgage. You need insurance. Home buyers need insurance for the property they're buying on a mortgage, so the bank doesn't lose their money. If the house burns down, they get the insurance payout. That kind of thing. There's crop insurance. Crops have crop insurance. If the farmer loses the entire crop to whatever, anything at all, right? Heat, flood, derecho, fire, then there's an insurance payout. So almost anywhere that there's risk, there's going to be an insurance policy. So why insurers worry the world could soon become uninsurable? So here's some key points. And I'm just going to read these key points. I think they're simple enough. I see three. Let's see. I may get into the article. We'll see. But this, this is the TLDR version, right? Key points. Some fear the world is fast approaching temperature levels where professional risk managers, we all know who those are, will no longer be able to offer cover for financial services. Mortgages. Gunther Thallinger, a board member at Allianz, one of the world's biggest insurers, says the climate crisis could make adaptation economically unviable. Adaptation. Unviable. So there's no way to cope. Can't cope. Zurich Insurance Group, meanwhile, said alongside a recent research paper assessing climate resilience that the outlook looks alarmingly bleak. Which sounds like the kind of thing I would say. We're up Schitt's Creek, folks. We're in big trouble. We're in big trouble. And the insurers, the people who insure your mortgage, insure your car, insure your life, they're saying, yeah, we're kind of done. We're cooked. The insurance industry is cooked. They don't see any way out. They don't see any way to adapt. This is their business model. I'm not casting shade on them because I don't like insurance companies. They're saying this about themselves. They're cooked. They're cooked. Take them at their word. You need to take these things seriously. Take them at their word. They're cooked. And they're not blaming it on payouts. I'm be very clear about something. They're not saying, oh, there have been a lot of payouts. It's costing a lot for us to, issue insurance policies. Some of these payouts, these are big payouts. We just lost Pacific Palisades. My goodness, it was, 19,000 $5 million properties. I don't know if it's 19,000. It's a large number though, of very expensive properties in North Hollywood. Oh my God! And they all burned, and now we have a big payout. That's not what they're saying. They're saying that the climate crisis, which I call global heating, which is the physics of the climate crisis. Let's just keep it grounded, folks. Okay, physics. That the physics of the situation is untenable. Not the payouts. I mean, that's the proximate problem. The proximate problem means the nearest problem. But the ultimate problem is what they're calling the climate crisis, and I call global heating. It's all physics, folks. They're saying that the Earth is making their business model untenable. They tried to bail out of California. California brought them back, seduced them into reissuing policies because the mortgage industry requires homeowners, people paying a mortgage, to have property insurance. And without property insurance, all these mortgages get recalled, and new mortgages cannot be issued on new properties. And so you can imagine the real estate industry, which is probably the biggest employer and the biggest money bags in California, most likely, maybe chip manufacturing comes close, but the real estate industry is enormous. It's huge in California. It's absolutely ginormous. We're the fourth largest economy in the world, and we have some of the most expensive housing on the planet. And these real estate agents have been making bank, but they have to be able to issue mortgages through mortgage lenders. And the mortgage lenders are like, okay, so you're going to have, unless you're paying cash, there's a mortgage involved. So if you're going to, try to secure a 30-year mortgage, then you have to have insurance against losses during that entire 30-year period. And then the prospective homeowners start looking around for insurance, and oh no, we can't find it. Erigerd, there's no insurers. No one's going to insure our property. What happened? How'd that happen? That's not right. Something wrong. And the insurers are like, yeah, well, we're going to have to pay out. And if we're going to have to pay out on your $1 million or $2 million property, well, then we need premiums to cover that loss, or we're going to take a loss. Or, as probably has happened, the state of California is going to underwrite like a reinsurer, like Munich Re. Munich Re is a reinsurance. They insure insurers. So State Farm is insured against losses by Munich Re, a reinsurer. And so California becomes the insurer of last resort and probably the reinsurer of last resort. So that's my guess, is that the state of California is now on the hook for all of these policies that have to be issued in these areas that burn. Now, Pacific Palisades, pictured here, was not one of those areas. This is not a hillside community. This is not a community up in the piney woods. They have street trees, and they have, palm trees and some other things. They have yards, but look, the yards are tiny and there's no brush around here. What happened? What happened in Pacific Palisades? And at the same time, pretty much a day later, in Altadena, 40 miles away, Altadena. Same phenomena, by the way. The same fires, the same problems, the same wind, the same everything. The same inability to fight the fire. Different town, same problem. Because it's global heating. Because it's not a problem with the city. It's not a problem with the firefighters being stupid. It's not a problem with the mayor being out of town. The problem is physics. I mean, if physics over here and physics over there, it's the same physics. Altadena burned. And so what happened? Why did... Just look at this picture. Just look at this fucking picture and you tell me what happened here. This looks like Germany's Dresden after a firebomb attack in the Second World War. This looks like Hiroshima. What part of this does not look like Hiroshima? What the fuck happened here? Well, it was a reservoir. It didn't have water in it. What the fuck happened here? You tell me. I mean, if it's not going to be, 100-mile-an-hour winds and tinder dry conditions and no rain and all of it's caused, everything I just said is caused by global heating, all of it, every single piece of it, then what is this? What is this shit? You tell me, genius, what this is. It's very simple what it is. It's global heating, and the insurance company wants out. They want out. They have no business model. Now, this is 8th in a series. Massive societal change. I want you to consider what your life is like without insurance. What is insurance? It's risk management. Take your car insurance. You could be a good driver, but bad things can happen. Hell, the steering wheel could come off in your hands and the car veers off the road and runs into a bus stop full of orphans, okay? Bad things can happen, accidents can happen, and bad things can happen to you by people who aren't as careful as you are. So we have automobile insurance, and the risk of injury to you or to someone else or to property or to cars is something someone has to assess. And of course, they look at your driving record and how often you got caught speeding and how many accidents have you already had and what kind of car do you drive and how old are you and how many teenagers do you have in your household and blah, blah, blah. So they look at all that and they decide what your risk is. How risky are you to insure? And then you have car insurance. Now in California, you can't legally drive a car without insurance. California is so rich and is so progressive that they make sure everyone has insurance. There's plenty of money in California for everybody to have a job where they can afford insurance. So they do. They make you buy car insurance. And if you get caught driving in California without proof of car insurance, you'll get a fine. And I don't know what happens after that. Maybe a couple of times you get your license restricted. They take your license away. And then you're driving both without insurance and without a license. Well, that's not going to be nice if you get caught again. So they make it difficult. So if you can't get auto insurance, then you can't drive. I mean, that's the law. Maybe you do anyway, but you're not supposed to. And that's just car insurance. State Farm, that issues mortgage insurance, also issues car insurance and life insurance. So if State Farm cannot operate in the state of California because of global heating and the payouts on property damage, as in Pacific Palisades and Altadena and Malibu and all the other places, Paradise, everywhere else is burned. If State Farm can't issue mortgage insurance and they leave the state, they're not going to issue car insurance. They're not going to issue life insurance. They're not going to issue business insurance. on what do they call it, inventory, so that if a business has a fire and they're selling furniture and they've got a lot of nice, imported furniture, hardwood furniture, and it all burns up, well then, there may not be insurance on that. And you really can't operate a business without insurance. You can't operate a business without liability insurance. If one of your employees falls down the stairs, you get sued, you could just lose your business. So all these things are tied together with the insurance industry. It's not just expensive homes in Pacific Palisades. It can also be blue-collar homes in Altadena, which was 40 miles away. The implications of what happens when these insurance companies can't operate is really, it's a big deal. And we're now veering, and I don't see how this can be avoided. We're now veering into an environment where the idea of having an insurance industry that is in the business of offsetting risk for everything we do might just be a quaint memory. Just a memory. And if you are shopping for a house and you're going to get a mortgage and you think you're just going to get, property insurance to help satisfy the mortgage lender's requirements, you may find that you're paying as much for your property insurance, or maybe half of what you pay for the mortgage. You may have a $4,000 mortgage and a $2,000 a month insurance bill. And can you afford that? Probably not. Or you may have to get less of a home. You thought you were going to have a $4,000 bill for both mortgage and insurance, and so you have to buy a cheaper house. Because the insurance, might go down a little bit if the house is cheaper, but won't go down by much. And so you're going to have to shop for both a mortgage insurance policy, as well as a house. You're shopping for both. And you may go to certain neighborhoods that haven't burned. What's it going to cost right now? Look at this mess. Look at this picture. What's it going to cost now to buy a house in this zip code? I can't say this neighborhood because there's no houses for sale in this neighborhood. This is the days immediately after the fire, but I'm fairly confident that if you go back to this area, you'll find it looks almost like this. What are these people supposed to do? These are rich people. Maybe they'll rebuild. Do they want to? Did they have enough insurance to rebuild? Did they have enough coverage? What if their insurance policy paid out $500,000? Because that's what they could afford, or that's what they thought they needed, or that's what made sense 20 years ago. And now to build in this area, you probably need at least $1 million to build. Because, building a house of any kind costs money. Materials, contractor fees, everything has to be done. All the expenses. And you're going to have to, it's going to cost a lot of money. So will these people rebuild? Some of them might. It'll be interesting to see. I can tell you from the example up in Paradise. Well, I've driven through there a couple of times since the campfire, and that town burnt to the ground. There's almost nothing. Almost nothing has come back. People are less likely to build. They're more likely to buy. There's a certain hesitancy to build, especially if you're building on ashes, right? The psychology of that. I'm not in this to build a home. I just want to buy a home, and I want it to have all the home stuff. I want it to have a garage and a back patio and a yard, and I want it to have doors and windows and a roof that doesn't leak. This is what I want when I buy a home. I don't want to have to buy a lot and then pay to have the foundation scrubbed up and hauled off. I mean, I guess you could use the original foundation, just build a home on top of the original foundation. I guess. I don't think there's anything. Is there any reason not to do that? You could do that. But let's say you decide not to do that. You're going to have to take this foundation out, all this heavy equipment, have it hauled off, all that expense. And then finally, when you prep the lot, now it's a lot surrounded by other lots that are still burned. And now you have to build your house. And how does that feel? It doesn't feel good. So the city of Paradise, which burned to the ground more or less, is still mostly empty. Wow. Yeah, it's been like 5 years now or something like that. It's crazy. And that used to be pretty hot real estate. That was fairly close up the hill, but still fairly close from the city of Chico, my hometown, and a university town. And so people, because they couldn't afford Chico anymore, as you can imagine, so they were up the hill buying in Paradise. And there's a really nice wide road, and you had the story you could tell yourself. It's a short commute town, and it's nice up there. There's piney woods. Well, it all fucking burned. So that's not going to work out, and apparently the people are not coming back. So will the Pacific Palisades come back? I don't know. What happens to these mortgages that are associated with all these burned out lots? Do the people walk away? Do the insurance companies pay out, or do they not? Some insurance policies pay out only if you're going to rebuild in the same location. That's the payout. The payout is not, well, here's a bunch of money, go to Hawaii and have a party. The payout is we'll rebuild you. In the same way that a policy, if you have a roof fire, an attic fire, it will pay to rebuild your roof, not to buy you a new car, right? You had a roof fire, because the insurance is on the property, not your lifestyle. So they want the property to be a good investment. And if you had an attic fire, burned your roof, burned some of the hole in your roof, then they want you to repair the roof, repair the attic, clean up the mess, get rid of all the water damage, so that if you do walk away from the mortgage, then they can sell the house and recoup their mortgage, which is a loan to the homeowner. And this is how this stuff works. What happens when they don't even bother issuing those policies? Because that's the world we're entering. There are massive fires in Spain right now, massive fires in Greece. There have been, for the last 3 years now, 3 years running, there have been apocalyptic scenes of fires coming out of southern Europe, all around the Mediterranean, Turkey, Syria, Greece, Italy, the south of France, Spain, Portugal, massive fires. And in other parts of Europe, massive floods. Car soup, as we call it. Cars floating down the middle of the street. Headed out to sea or something. Who the hell knows where they're going? There's insurance policies on those cars. There's insurance policies on the businesses on either side of the street where the floodwaters are. There's insurance policies for those businesses, for the contents of those shops, and for loss of business, meaning we can't be in business until we get this cleaned up, but we're insured against being out of business. So there's an insurance payout for being out of business for a while you're dealing with a disaster. So anytime you see 10 seconds of footage out of Europe about floods and cars floating down the middle of the street, and quaint restaurants flooded, and sandbags at the doors and the windows bursted out from the floodwaters, and every one of those 10-second presentations about the disaster, you're looking at probably $10 million worth of damage. Just 10 seconds of footage of a flood in Italy, you're probably looking at $10 million in losses up and down that street, plus the cars, plus the loss of business opportunity. So all of this is insured, and all of this insurance, all of this risk management, which is what the insurance industry is about, is being swept away. Sometimes literally in the case of floods. And these are businesses. They're not charities. They're not nationalized industries like healthcare might be. They're not going to be there for you regardless. They're not going to absorb all these losses because they're such a charity house. They're not going to be there. They'll walk away. And if they have to walk away from every industrialized nation, then they will. They'll take whatever slim profits they've made recently, and they dole them out to their shareholders, and they fold up the shop, and they're done. And, the shareholders will take their money, their winnings, and they'll go someplace else and do something else with their money, invest in something else. But they won't invest in the insurance companies or maybe finances in general. Because a lot of your insurance companies are actually investment houses. They take the premiums and then they invest them out in the economy. And so when they have to fold up shop, they de-invest. They sell all their assets, some of which is real estate, but it can also be stocks, bonds, and a bunch of other things. And they bring all those assets back in-house, and then they dole them out to the shareholders, and then they close the doors. So they have to de-invest and have to pull all this money in. That's going to impact the economy. All this finances that came out of these insurance companies is all withdrawn from the system. And that was finances that helped start businesses, helped fund governments when they had a deficit, that helped the airline industry take out a loan to buy more airplanes. All that stuff comes back when they close up shop. And the insurance industry is absolutely going to close up shop. And that'll affect everything from your life insurance policy and your auto insurance policy, neither one of which you can even imagine doing without, but you will. And then they're going to stop issuing insurance on properties that have a mortgage. And that's going to affect the mortgage lenders who suddenly can't lend money because they have a fiduciary responsibility to make sure their losses are insured. Okay? And also the real estate industry is going to fold up. Because I don't know what the percentage is, but let's just pull a number out of the air. 90% of home purchases are a mortgage that must be insured. We'll say 10% are cash purchases. And I don't know, even if you pay cash and you don't have a mortgage, so there's no mortgage lender breathing down your neck saying, hey, where's your policy, pal? You still might want a policy. You just bought a home. You just paid a lot of money for it. You just paid cash for it, but so there's no mortgage. But it's an expensive house. You're going to want a policy. Even if you do everything right and you trim your bushes and you rake the leaves, you do all this stuff. Your neighbor isn't doing that. Your neighbor has teenagers. They're up in there. They're doing drugs. They're smoking pot. They set the bedroom on fire. Pretty soon the whole house is on fire, and your house is right next door. And you're going to have insurance, right? Even if you don't have a mortgage, you're still going to have insurance, except you won't. You won't. This is called swimming naked. When the tide goes out, then we find out who's swimming naked. And I'm assuming all these people in Pacific Palisades, a lot of money here, probably every lot that's in this picture, burned to the ground, of course, every single one of those, whether they had a mortgage or not, every single one of these was insured. You just know it. These are people with money. Like I said, these are the creme de la creme of society. And, they have $5-6 million homes here. And, of course, they're insured. And if nothing else, they're insured against liability. The mailman trips on a crack in the sidewalk in front of their house and, breaks his arm. They're insured against that. They're insured against all claims. And all these houses burned down. How many houses are in this picture? Well, there's 20. I'm saying like 20 times 15. So that's like 300 houses? That's at least 300. It might be 500 houses in this picture alone. 500 houses. And let's say they had insurance for $1 million each. And that would be low. Probably most like $2 or $3 million each, probably. But let's say they're $1 million each, and there's 500 houses in this picture, and easily. That's $500 million in losses. That's $500 million in losses. One frame of one picture. $500,000. $500 million. This is probably this picture right here. Conservatively, I say that the insurance payout on this was closer to $2 or $3 billion. This picture alone. And this is just a fraction of what was lost. The key is not that there were losses, not even that people died. Well, I'm sure both those happened. That's not the discussion today. The discussion is the insurance industry can't afford this. Now you could say, well, they could raise premiums. Oh, they would love to do that because that helps offset the payouts, right? But if they increase their premiums, people won't be able to afford insurance. And so they'll either be uninsured, which they can't be if they have a mortgage, or they'll be underinsured. And the mortgage lenders are very keen on being insured to the price of the property that has a mortgage. So there's not many options here, folks. One option, I guess, is that these houses are never rebuilt. That's one option. There's not enough money. Maybe they have in a policy from 30 years ago, and it's a $500,000 payout, and these are it's going to cost $2 million to rebuild a home, and you've got $500,000 in your pocket, and no can do. So maybe some of these will rebuild. Maybe some of these people have enough pocket change they can just rebuild, pay for it themselves, take their insurance payout, add some more money to it, rebuild. Maybe they could do that. But how long is that going to take, and how many people will do that? This could be an empty neighborhood, empty lots with, some street trees and maybe a foundation that got grubbed up and hauled off and just weeds. If there's 500 properties in this picture, there might be 50 homes, 1 out of 10, 50 homes rebuilt here. Now, the series is massive societal change. Everything I've described involving the insurance industry, their problems, what their strategies are, this all becomes massive societal change. We insure our lives against risk. We are required to have insurance against risk in the case of an auto policy or a property policy on a mortgaged house or other property or a business. Our society is geared around this notion of mitigating risk through insurance policies. Well, if the insurance industry is having to leave and to close up shop and redistribute their money to shareholders and just stop, that's really their future. Their future is to stop. They won't be able to do this anymore. If that is their future, then what is the future of society when that happens? Because that is going to happen. And that's their concern. It's my concern as well, because I know what's happening to them. And I know that what's happening to them now can only get worse. It can only get worse. They know that too, because they accept the science and they do the math and they know where the losses are happening and they know how much it's costing. And when they talk to their portfolio experts, they ask the question, could this have been avoided? How do we avoid this? Do we need better zoning regulations? Do we need better fire regulations? Do we need more smoke detectors? How do we avoid this in the future? Because we have access to the legislatures. We can pass more laws. We can pass different laws. We can change zoning requirements. We can change mortgage lending requirements. We can change a lot of things. We're a big industry. What do we need? What's happening to us? And the experts, the adjusters, and the field people, they're going to say, "Oh yeah, this is global heating. Here's the science. Here's the charts. Here's the models. We have our own models. We've been modeling this stuff for 40 years, and we the trends are the trends, and the trend is not your friend." They know. Why do you think they're saying things like these 3 points? The world is fast approaching temperature levels where professional risk managers will no longer be able to offer cover for financial services. The world is fast. I'm going to read this again. There's a lot of jargon in here. I want to read it again. The world is fast approaching temperature levels, physics, where professional risk managers, insurers, will no longer be able to offer policies against risk. Can it be any more obvious what's happening to them? And they're tagging it to temperature. Again, it's global heating, people. It's not this fucking mealy-mouthed climate change bullshit they've been fisting us off with. No, it's global heating. It's physics. And your climate action and your adaptation and your resilience That's just hippie hand-holding and singing Kumbaya. You're dealing with physics now, bitches. You're going down. You are going down. You're going down. You're going to burn. Motherfuckers, you're going to burn. You're going to drown. And after you drown, you're going to burn. And after you burn, something else is going to happen to you. All right? We are in the jaws of it. And the insurance industry is saying, we will no longer be able to offer coverage. Yeah, there you go. Read them and weep. Right out of the horse's mouth. Right there. No longer be able to offer coverage. Well, la-dee-da. Well, there you go. And what happens to your comfortable life when you have to basically insure yourself? Because that's what this is talking about. You'd have to insure yourself. Nobody has money for that. Okay, the state will come along. California has the FAIR Plan. And it was intended for people who couldn't get affordable insurance. This is the real estate industry. The real estate industry went to California and said, look, we noticed the problem. We're having trouble selling properties in these, let's not call them dangerous. That's over dramatic. But, riskier. Well, there's a euphemism here. Or maybe it wasn't in this one. Maybe it was something else. These high-risk mortgages. Let's just call them that. Let's just imagine the realtors called these high-risk mortgages. And high risk doesn't mean that the mortgage holder won't pay it. There is a risk of the non-payment of the mortgage, but this is a different kind of risk, right? This is new, and the industry is being taken by surprise by this particular risk. And so they went to the state of California and they said, look, we're finding it difficult because the insurance industry does the fucking math and they read the fucking scientific papers and they pay fucking attention to it. And no, they don't think it's a hoax and it's not caused by the Chinese. It's physics, okay? And the real estate people who are trying to sell these houses, they're coming back to the state of California and they're saying, well, we have a little bit of a situation here where some of these mortgages are seen as higher risk and we can't get. It's a weird thing. It's just weird. It's probably just weird. We can't get insurance on these mortgages. I know it's weird, right? So here's an idea. I just thought of this. Here's an idea. How about the state of California offers insurance to high-risk property holders? Well, that sounds like a good idea. Then if someone wants to buy this quaint, comfy home up in the piney woods, which burns about every 10 years, and they want a 30-year mortgage. So that means it's going to burn 3 times before the mortgage is paid off. It's math, bitches. It's just math, okay? It's going to burn 3 times. Or that zip code is going to burn 3 times before this mortgage is paid off. So these are, how should we say, high-risk insurance customers. So how about the state of California? So rich, so generous. How about the state of California offers coverage of last resort? Of course, it'll be affordable, of course, because you can't offer, expensive insurance. I mean, we can get expensive insurance for rich people from State Farm and Farmers and all the others. So we don't need another insurer for expensive policies. We can get that. Thank you. That's not really the thing we're looking for here. We're looking for cheap insurance that's affordable by these people who are going to live in a single-wide mobile home up in the mountains because, whatever, they got issues, but they're going to buy this property and they're going to live up in the mountains and surrounded by the piney woods. They're going to burn 3 times before their mortgage gets paid out. So they need a cheap, affordable thing, and we think California can fill this void. This like, it's weird. It's like, why this disease is even happening, but it's a thing. So California said, that's interesting. We can help our buddies in the real estate industry and even the insurance industry, by the way, because they don't want to insure these properties at all. So we can help our buddies in the real estate industry and the insurance industry, both of whom, I'd have to check my notes because I just don't have the number in front of me, paid hundreds of millions of dollars into political campaigns. So let's help them out. We'll offer the FAIR Plan. Let's call it the FAIR Plan because It's all about fairness. Of course it is. It's not about helping the real estate industry sell dangerous properties, and it's not about indemnifying the rich financial organizations that are writing these policies. No. Of course not. It's not about money and privilege. Oh, please. It's about fairness. So let's call it the FAIR Plan. And so now all these people living up in the piney woods, all these hillbillies, they're all on the FAIR Plan. We were even on the FAIR Plan for a little while because we got dropped. I don't know why. I guess because we live in California. We got dropped by, farmers? They just sent us a letter and said, yeah, it's time for your renewal. Oops, you're dropped. And we're like, call them on the phone. Why? We've never made a claim, and we don't think anybody in the 3-4 county area has ever made a claim. Why are you dropping us? And they're like, it's just business. And that's when I knew, like 5 years ago, that, business is in big trouble. So, we got on the California FAIR Plan. We were on the FAIR Plan for like a couple months. My wife knows the number, but it doesn't matter. We were on the FAIR, and then we got a proper policy from somebody else, and we were covered. Because they really dropped us like out of the blue, something like that. And we didn't really know what was going on. I kind of knew what was going on. I said, oh yeah, this is global heating. Oh boy, we're kind of fucked. And then paying more attention to the industry as a whole, which I have continued to do. You still hear horror stories about whole zip codes being dropped by insurers. But anyway, we got on the FAIR Plan. It was okay. It's fine. It was affordable. It was, not that we're a big risk here in the South Bay. I mean, come on. He says, until, of course, the whole South Bay burns down. But that's a story for another day. So we're not a big risk, and we got on the FAIR Plan, and then we got off the FAIR Plan, we got something else. We got better insurance with a proper provider. But that was after they came back. They came back to California, and we got a policy through them. And it was affordable. That's fine. I mean, it went up a lot. I think it doubled. But it doesn't matter. It's still affordable. So we got a proper insurance policy, and we are properly insured for the value of our property, whatever that is, and everything's hunky-dory. But the FAIR Plan was there. So in theory, that was a nice transition. Our industry representative, farmers or whatever it was, dropped us flat. And they dropped everybody. And they even said, oh, yes, nothing personal. We dropped everybody. Goodbye. So, okay, that's a thing. So they dropped everybody. We got on the FAIR Plan. FAIR Plan sounds fine to me. And we got our insurance. And then we got back with another insurance company, a different one. Said, are you offering insurance? Oh, yeah, we're back in business. Great. And so we took care of that. So it was a useful service at the California level. But I think there's probably a lot more people using the California FAIR Plan as a primary insurer. Not just as a bridge between the insurance industry giants trying to figure out their shit, which is what they were doing, which is what they're still doing. I imagine the insurance companies, they'll probably never leave. California is the 4th largest economy in the planet. They're not going to leave California, but they're going to have backing from the state. They're going to have backing from the state so that if something like Pacific Palisades, what's on the screen here, if something like this happens again and they have to pay out $2 or $3 billion in a single quarter, then they're not going to be wiped out. California will kind of come along and say, oh, $3 billion, that's a lot of money. Really sorry to hear that. And then just behind their back, just slip $3 billion to the insurance industry. You say, wow, that's underhanded. No, I'm sure it's all legally binding and it's all been signed in triplicate, and they did a favor for the insurance industries, they did a favor for the real estate industry, therefore they did a favor for themselves and for all of us. And so they're going to help underwrite as reinsurers the insurance industry in California. This is a lot of money, people. Holy smokes, so to speak. We're talking tens of billions of dollars. Taxpayer money. But the service is, because we're reinsuring the insurance industry, they came back to California. And because they came back to California, the realtors can sell homes that have a 30-year mortgage, and the mortgage people don't have to worry about losing their shirts on something like the Pacific Palisades and the campfire and all the others. And the insurance companies don't leave the state. And because they're in the state, they can also issue car insurance, life insurance, property insurance, inventory insurance, crop insurance, because that's what happens with modern society. Everything is insured. And if you're a business person, you know exactly how that works. It's going to hurt when they're gone. It's going to be a big problem. It's going to leave a mark when the insurance industry implodes. But it is going to implode. Not every state in the Union, in the U.S., has a FAIR plan or the equivalent. Most of the states are too poor. California and New York together fund most of the other states. And if California is having to use its own money to underwrite insurance policies in California, which it can do, then there's potentially less money for the other states. So a lot of these other states, and I'm looking at you, Southeast U.S. and Central U.S. and Midwest, looking at you, these less wealthy states are going to be up shit's creek when the insurance industries bail out. And how do they bail out? They don't just bail out by saying, well, the policies are really expensive now, pay up. They bail out by closing their doors. They sell their assets and they distribute the money to the shareholders, and the shareholders take their money and they go invest in something else. But they're not investing in insurance companies because they're gone. They're gone. And what happens when there's no insurance? Do businesses actually operate anymore? Is a business owner going to even bother investing his money or taking out business loans for his business when he's not insured? Is that the risk that he wants to assume? Because that's what he's now taking on all the risk. That there's not going to be a fire and a flood and a derecho and a tornado and a hurricane. It's going to wipe him out. Uninsured losses. He's basically taking on all the risk. Will he do that? No, he won't. He won't have that business. He won't open that business. Or if he's in business, he'll close that business. He'll sell his inventory. And he'll shut down his business, and he'll pay his employees a severance, and he'll say goodbye to that community, and he'll just give it up. He'll take his winnings, and maybe he'll go operate a business in some other state. Or he'll operate his business in some other way. Some other business entirely. Or no business at all. Because no one wants to be caught swimming naked when the tide goes out. So this spills over into all these other things. The businessman who closes his furniture business because he can't get insurance against flood or fire or anything else, really, his employees lose their jobs. And they work there for 10 years, 20 years, 15 years, and they lose their jobs. They're 50 years old, not really able to retrain, can't get a job someplace else. They planned on retiring from that job, but their Social Security is now out of reach. 25 years from now, they can get on Social Security. And there's no jobs, and they're living on their savings, and that's massive societal change. The business closes up shop. The employees go home. They don't know what to do with themselves. They have no income, no prospect of an income, and then what happens? Good question. And when when they just refuse to issue mortgage insurance, and you can't get property insurance for your mortgage, well, then the real estate industry implodes, and maybe there's real estate industries in places where everyone buys their own insurance. Essentially, rich places like Pacific Palisades, maybe there's an insurance industry there, but not anywhere else. If you're wanting to buy a home in some suburb of the Bay Area, maybe you can't get insurance, period. Because they're not issuing policies because they've closed up shop, or essentially have. And so that's too bad. So you go on the California Fair Plan, and of course now premiums are going up because there's so many people subscribing to the Fair Plan, and there's so many payouts in the Fair Plan that now it's just basically another insurance company. It's not the insurer of last resort. It's not a giveaway program. Now it's the insurance company. It's the state-sponsored insurance company. And how long can that last? Another big fire, a $10 billion payment, and poof, they're gone. They close up shop. Say, we're pulling back all of our policies. We're done. We have no policies. If you had a policy with farmers, they pulled out. If you had a policy with State Farm, they pulled out. If you had a policy with AAA, they pulled out. If you had a policy with the Fair Plan, they pulled out. So you can call Farmers, and you can call State Farm, and you can call AAA, and they're not issuing policies. And the Fair Plan just evaporated and pulled all their policies, and that's it. What are you going to do? Your mortgage lender sends you a very friendly letter telling you that you are not covered, and that you must attain coverage in the next 30 days. What are you going to do? Because you can't. There's nothing. No one will touch you. They won't even offer a policy. They're not offering you a policy. They're not offering you an expensive policy. They're not offering you a policy. They've closed up shop. They didn't leave California. They closed up the shop. So you have to sell your real estate? I don't even know. Do you have to sell your house and pay back the mortgage? I don't even know what happens. We're off the edge of the map here, folks. We are off the edge of the map. You want yourself some massive societal change? Well, look out. Look out, people, because you're just about to get some. When you can't buy a policy for your mortgage for hell or anything, and you're swimming naked and you think you'll just risk it, then you get the letter. We're calling in your mortgage. And you can't get a policy on your car because there's nobody in the state selling policies for anything, including your car, including your life insurance. You can't get policy for your car. You're going to stop driving because you're supposed to. You're going to stop driving. And if you don't, and you get into an accident and someone comes after you with a lawyer and you have a $200,000 claim, you're going to have to sell your house. Then what? What happens to all these people that have to suddenly unload their mortgage, sell their property, just to get out from under whatever's left on their mortgage, just to pay it off as best they can? What happens to those people? They can't get a new home. I mean, why did they sell their home in the first place? Because they couldn't get property insurance as required by the mortgage. So how are they going to approach a real estate agent? The real estate agents are going to be saying things like, excuse me, are you insurable? Or they're going to say things like, can you self-insure? Can you put up $1 million bond on your property to self-insure for liability? Not flood and fire and earthquake, just liability. Can you put up a $1 million bond? Because we can't sell you a house unless you can meet the requirements for property liability and damage. People can't keep their house. People can't buy a house. What am I talking about? It's all tied to the insurance industry. Nobody thinks about these things. Nobody knows that this is what's coming. We've had a preview of coming attractions right here in California, right here in my own home, a preview of coming attractions. What happens? I'll tell you what happens. Massive societal change. It isn't always a good thing, people. In fact, in this series, most of the massive societal change I've been talking about has a dark side. A dark side. It's change. It's not good. The end of consumerism, the video just before this one, was not a pretty picture. No. And the end of the insurance industry, this one, is not a pretty picture. No, it is not. We're in for it, people. We are in for it. Do I have to read this again? Do I have to? You want to hear something scary? This should have your hair standing on end. Some fear the world is fast approaching temperature levels where professional risk managers will no longer be able to offer cover for financial services. Mortgages. Are you kidding me? Will no longer be able to offer coverage because of the temperature. It's here. This is not the year 2100 they're talking about. Fast approaching temperature levels. Fast approaching temperature levels. Not the year 2050, not the year 2100, the year 2025, now. Fast approaching. Climate crisis could make adaptation economically unviable. Adaptation is economically unviable. That doesn't send a chill down your spine. That doesn't have your jaw drop open. Everybody out there in the climate space, the climate action and the climate, everything else, they're all talking about adaptability and adaptation and the importance of that. Adaptation becomes economically unviable. Are you hearing this? This is from the insurance companies. This is not from Greenpeace. This isn't even from the MAGA or the GOP or any other bunch of lying fuckbags. This is from the math people, the mathematicians, the people who pay attention to the climate science. Adaptation, economically unviable. Did you just have a stroke? Because this should make you have a stroke. Alongside a recent research paper assessing climate resilience, that the outlook looks alarmingly bleak. Bleak, their word. Alarmingly, they're alarmed. All this hoo-ha about climate adaptation and climate resilience and climate action, you people, you just don't get it. You're done. You're cooked. You're completely cooked. The insurance industries, they're talking about ending complex civilization. They're ending it. You're not going to be able to get insurance for fucking anything. Any risk. You will have to assume all risk. You're going to assume all risk. You're going to assume all risk. And if you have a mortgage, your mortgage lender is not going to assume any of your fucking risk. They're going to make you sell your property. They're going to take the payout. They're going to write off the policy, take any losses. The mortgage. They're going to take any losses on that financial deal, and they're going to back away from your entire zip code. And the next person who wants to buy that house is going to have to pay cash and be self-insured. And who's that going to be? Nobody. But the mortgage holders don't care. They're not in that zip code anymore. They got all those mortgages paid off. They took their losses, whatever they were. They backed out. These are financial companies. They're also reinsured, and they take the payout that they have to receive, and then they close up shop. They're out of business because they can't issue mortgages without an insurance industry. And the insurance industry folded up shop last month. And then the realtors, which is probably half of the California's economy. I say that's probably not true, but let's just imagine that the real estate industry is half of California's economy. They're out of business. They fold up. They're not selling any houses. They might sell one a year, two a year to people with cash. Well, here in the Bay Area, it's probably more than one or two a year. And there's a lot of people paying cash in the Bay Area. A lot of it is hot money coming out of China and Taiwan and South Korea. But aside from that, anywhere else, the real estate industry folds up. So the insurance industry folds up, the mortgage industry folds up, and the real estate industry folds up. And that's what? Half the state economy right there. And it's virtually all of the housing goes off the market, because now it can't be sold. It's all held by mortgage companies, and nobody. How does that even work? You sell your house at a loss. I guess someone owns it, but they paid 10 cents on the dollar, and they're self-insured. And what kind of a dystopian clusterfuck is that? Every house sells for 10 cents on the dollar. And it's all owned by BlackRock. Buys it all up for pennies on the dollar. BlackRock buys it all up and rents it out or something. That's a dystopian hellscape. 0% home ownership. Everybody rents, and they're all paying rent to BlackRock. You want yourself some massive societal change? Well, we're up to episode 8. How long do I go on with this? I don't even know. Where does this go? Where does this end? We're in the jaws of disaster, people. In the jaws of disaster. And when they yank your property insurance and your mortgage lender finds out, well, that's going to be an interesting day, isn't it? That's all I got. I'm supposed to be doing something outside. My wife just got back. I need to get back on that business. It was hot. I had to come inside. I came inside and I drank some water and cooled off under the air conditioner, and now it should be cooler. Yeah, it's hot. Some places it's hotter than it is here, though. That's going to offset some dreams people have. Good luck out there, folks. Like and subscribe, and I have a link in my description to buy me a coffee. I mean, I drink a lot of coffee, so if you people would buy me a coffee, you'd be really helping, okay? This would be a big help for me. I'm paying $5 for lattes at this point. I even bring my own cup. I bring my own cup, and I still pay $5 for a latte. It's unfair. And right now I can afford my insurance, and that's about all I can say. Like and subscribe, buy me a coffee, and we'll be back to talk about something else equally lovely, as you can well imagine. Oh, yeah. It's going to be hot out there, folks, and it's raining and it's flooding. So my advice to you is, whatever you do, don't die. What can I say? It's a thing.